Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Heather Bogle? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Heather Christina Bogle was born on December 27, 1986, in Rock Hill, South Carolina. At some point, she moved to Tiffin, Ohio, which is an hour southeast of Toledo. In 2006, she graduated from high school. Heather had a daughter named Mackenzie and moved to Fremont, Ohio. This is about 18 miles north of Tiffin. She worked the overnight shift at a Whirlpool plant in nearby Clyde, Ohio. She started at 10 p.m. and finished work at 6 a.m. In early 2015, Heather completed nursing school, but she failed to pass the nursing exam. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On April 9, 2015, Heather left work at 6:17 a.m. Friends and family members noticed that she never picked up her daughter Mackenzie, which she should have done. Unable to reach Heather, they became concerned about her safety and contacted the police, but they did not get any help. The next day, April 10, at 8 p.m., Heather's 2003 Oldsmobile Alero was found on Hickory Street at an apartment complex called Somerton Apartments. This was just over a mile south of the Whirlpool plant. Heather did not know anyone who lived in those apartments. In the trunk of her vehicle, the police found her body. She had been shot twice in the back. Heather had been restrained and beaten. Her hair had been cut off close to her scalp, and her fingernails had been cut. Despite this, DNA was recovered from under her fingernails. There was no match in any law enforcement database. Heather had marijuana in her system and was wearing an extra-large Mickey Mouse t-shirt. There were no holes in the shirt, so it must have been put on after she was shot to death. A witness at the apartment complex said that someone parked Heather's vehicle there at 1:30 a.m. A person exited the driver's side and walked north. Heather's phone stopped transmitting at 9:20 a.m., but at that time, the police did not collect all the available data. They only narrowed the phone's location down to a 6-mile radius, which wasn't particularly helpful. The detective assigned to the case was named Sean O'Connell. He worked for the Sandusky County Sheriff's Office. Sean brought a police dog to Somerton Apartments. The dog alerted near the apartment of a woman named Kiona. Sean noticed that Kiona had posted images on social media indicating an affinity for Mickey Mouse. Again, Heather was found in an extra-large Mickey Mouse t-shirt. It was too big for Heather, but the right size for Kiona. When Sean spoke to her, she was evasive. Kiona would later tell the media that she was evasive because she had been smoking marijuana. Sean believed that Heather must have been visiting the apartment complex to buy marijuana, which again was found in Heather's system. Kiona denied any involvement with selling drugs. Kiona was acquainted with a man named Omar, who had a long criminal history. The police noticed that a white SUV had been captured on video surveillance driving in the same direction as Heather's car. Omar had posted an image on social media of him sitting in a white SUV. Sean had talked to a witness who implicated a friend of Omar's named Kay Ree, saying that Kay Ree had dumped a gun in a river. Allegedly, this gun had been stolen by Omar. The police searched the river, but did not find a gun. Sean still believed this was a good lead. There were two other potential suspects Sean was looking into. Heather was in a tumultuous romantic relationship with a woman named Carmela. A note from Carmela to Heather was found in Heather's vehicle. One passage read something to the effect of, "You are dead to me." It didn't sound like the relationship was going too well. Heather also had a volatile relationship with her brother, Josh. A few hours before Heather left work for the last time, Josh had sent text messages to her indicating that she was, quote, "too stupid to pass the LPN battery exam," unquote. He also wrote, quote, "low expectations of yourself, typical trash, like your mom and dad," unquote. Josh later suggested his message was designed to shame his sister into being better. Detective Sean O'Connell believed that the best potential suspects were Kiona, Omar, and Kay Ree. He was so confident he even named them publicly. This caused damage to their reputations, mostly because of the murder accusation part. As it turns out, the DNA found under Heather's fingernails did not match any of these potential suspects. However, Sean was not forthcoming with this information. He came under investigation himself for concealing evidence. Sean quit his job as a detective and started working as a manager at a McDonald's restaurant. He went from grilling suspects to grilling burgers. Sean should have put his investigative skills to work to solve the ultimate cold case. Why are the McDonald's ice cream machines always broken? It's easy to picture him shaking his fist at the machine and yelling, "I won't stop until justice is soft-served." At around the same time as Sean was starting his McMuffin-based adventure, the sheriff who Sean worked for, Kyle Overmeyer, found himself in a different kind of pickle. Kyle was arrested for stealing drug take-back boxes filled with discarded drugs from various police departments in Sandusky County. It looks like the sheriff confused the take-back program with a recycling program. Ultimately, Kyle ended up receiving a 4-year prison sentence. A new sheriff was elected, and a new detective was assigned to the case of Heather's murder. The 3 potential suspects who Sean was so focused on, Kiona, Omar, and Kay Ree, were cleared of any wrongdoing. Heather's lover Carmilla and Heather's brother Josh were also excluded as potential suspects. Their DNA did not match the DNA found under Heather's fingernails. The police needed to start over with their investigation. The new detective focused on data from Heather's phone. He found GPS data, which Sean never pursued, that supplied a more precise location of Heather's phone not long after she left work on April 9, 2015. At 6:24 a.m., just 7 minutes after she left work, her phone was just outside the door of a trailer in the Emerald Estates Trailer Park located on County Road 224 in Clyde, Ohio. This is only 2.5 miles from the plant where Heather worked. This trailer was occupied by a man named Daniel Myers. He was a coworker of Heather's. They had left work at about the same time. When the police spoke to Daniel, he acted like he barely knew who Heather was, implying that they had very limited conversations. They asked him if he would supply his DNA, but he refused. The police returned with a warrant 2 days later and obtained Daniel's DNA. It was a match for the DNA found under Heather's fingernails. Daniel was arrested in June 2017. The police found other evidence against Daniel. For example, he replaced some of the subfloor in his trailer less than a week after Heather's murder. He purchased a new mattress a few weeks later, and 3 months after the murder, he went to a dentist to have a broken tooth fixed. In a safe found in Daniel's trailer, the police found women's underwear and a journal documenting his sexual activities. Some of the activities were considered violent and sadistic. After his arrest, 10 women came forward and accused him of committing assaults of a sexual nature. Here is the theory of the crime developed by the police. Heather voluntarily went with Daniel to his trailer after work. When they entered the trailer, Daniel made a sexual advance, which was promptly rejected by Heather. In a moment of anger, Daniel shot Heather to death. He then cleaned up the crime scene, drove her vehicle to the apartment complex where it was later found, and walked 3.2 miles back to his trailer. On February 13, 2019, Daniel Myers pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. In 2009, a former girlfriend of Daniel's named Leanne Sluter died under mysterious circumstances. She was shot and killed with a .22 caliber rifle that was found next to her body. This happened in a trailer that was next to Daniel's trailer in Emerald Estates. Ultimately, the authorities concluded that she fired the fatal shot. Some people believe that Daniel must have killed her. Therefore, the police reinvestigated Leanne's death. They found a note that she left behind, which made it clear that she pulled the trigger. In the note, she talked about how Daniel would use her like a bank and kick her to the side when the next best thing came along. She noted that she was always there for him without question, even when he said the meanest things. Item number 2, many women who interacted with Daniel found him to be disturbing. They described him as aggressive, violent, a narcissist, a womanizer, a monster, a master manipulator, and someone who would not take no for an answer. Daniel was extremely motivated to have sex, angry during sex, and had a particular interest in sadistic acts like pulling hair and biting. He wrote down details of each act he performed with his partners. Colleagues at work frequently referred to Daniel as creepy. His female coworkers would tell young women at the plant to stay away from him. Heather was one of the women who was warned about Daniel. She rejected him romantically when he made an advance. Daniel told people that he was upset because Heather was arrogant and would not give him the time of day. Given this rejection, why did Heather go to Daniel's trailer? One theory about how Daniel convinced Heather to accompany him involved that impolite message that Heather received a few hours before she finished work. Again, her brother had called her trash because she failed the nursing exam. Heather would have been understandably upset about this characterization. Perhaps she vented to Daniel, and he appeared to respond empathically. This humanized Daniel and convinced Heather to trust him enough to go back to his trailer and continue the conversation. He made a romantic advance in the trailer and was rejected. Daniel then shot Heather to death. Item number 3. As I mentioned, the detective who worked on the case first, Sean O'Connell, was investigated for concealing evidence. He had concealed DNA results that excluded the 3 people he suspected of involvement in the murder. Sean was arrested and charged with tampering with evidence, dereliction of duty, and witness coercion. In September 2018, he pleaded guilty to 1 felony count of tampering with evidence. Sean was sentenced to 2 years in prison and released on July 2, 2020. Some people feel sorry for Sean, believing he was a good detective who just made a mistake in this particular case. Undoubtedly, he had almost sent innocent people to prison, but perhaps it wasn't intentional. This is an interesting theory, but Sean has been accused of falsifying evidence many times in his career. The concealing of evidence in the case of Heather's murder was not something that can be overlooked as an innocent mistake. In addition to falsely accusing people, Sean failed to catch Daniel. On April 12, 2015, 2 days after Heather's body was found in the trunk of her car, Sean received a tip about a man who worked with Heather who was capable of murder. He did not bother to pursue this lead. If he had, he would have discovered that the coworker being implicated was Daniel Myers. Item number 4, what do I think happened as far as Sean's behavior? This is just a theory, my opinion. Sean O'Connell was reckless, grandiose, cold, callous, vindictive, petty, and had a sense of entitlement. He operated under a bizarre theory about how criminal prosecutions should occur. Instead of following the evidence, he viewed his job as matching people who he designated as bad with crimes. It did not matter if the people actually committed the crimes. The objective was to get them in prison. Sean had no credible evidence against the 3 people he implicated in Heather's murder. What he latched onto as important was actually very flimsy. For example, his observation that Keona liked Mickey Mouse was not significant. Evidently, Sean's investigative method strongly overvalued clues related to Disney. If Heather had been found in a Cinderella costume, maybe Sean would have interrogated the fairy godmother next. Sean disregarded and concealed exculpatory evidence and let the actual killer remain free. He falsely accused people of crimes that could have sent them to prison for life, yet only received a sentence of 2 years for his crime. The system showed him more mercy than he showed his victims when he was part of the system. There are good officers out there who make mistakes during investigations, but Sean was a bad officer who knew exactly what he was doing. Those are my thoughts in the case of Heather Bogle. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They consistently generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.